Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WISE's last live streaming event in collaboration with Science Odyssey Week. My name is Joelle. I'm WISE's outreach coordinator, so I'm going to be moderating and contributing to the panel today. This is our live stream series that we call Discovering a Whole New World, that's designed to help you, the students, connect with a diversity of mentors from the comfort of your own school. So this session is called Careers in STEM. So we're going to learn a little bit about a few of the numerous careers that can be had in the field of STEM and how you can decide which one is right for you. So right now we're going to pass off to our panelists. And so I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about you. So Heidi, let's start with you.
Hey everyone, my name is Heidi. I am a PhD student here at the U of A. So I'm studying geoenvironmental engineering. So that is a combination of geotechnical engineering and then environmental engineering. So what that means is it's sort of like constructing dams, but also cleaning up different contaminants that might be in the environment. So I've done all my schooling here at the U of A. I did a bachelor's degree in civil environmental engineering. Then I worked as a consulting engineer, and then I came back to do a master's in environmental engineering, and now I'm starting my PhD.
Very cool. And Leah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah. I am a chemist by trade. My official title is a research technologist. I work for a small engineering research firm. I did my bachelor's here at the U of A. I did a specialization degree in chemistry, so I have no minor. I only studied chemistry. My current job role is helping my engineering firm to develop in-house chemical analysis. So although they do a lot of research, traditionally they sent a lot of that work out, and now they want to reclaim a lot of that analysis in-house. So I'm basically helping them to build a lab.
Very cool. And because I'm going to be sharing a little bit about myself today, again, my name is Joelle. I have a bachelor's degree in forest health, which is kind of a combination of forestry and biology. And then my master's degree, I focused on insect pathology. So I studied fungal insect diseases as a way to monitor integrated pest management, so to deal with unwanted pests. I've worked as a farm products inspector for the New York State Department of Agriculture. I've worked for the Agricultural Research Service in the United States as a research technician. I've also worked for a biodiversity monitoring institute dealing with citizen science. And now I'm the outreach coordinator for WISES. So I've worn lots of different hats. So I know we did this a little bit already, but we're going to describe your current career situation. And so students, how are you working to get to a career that you want? So Heidi, why don't you go first with that?
For sure. So I just started my PhD 4 months ago, so it'll take me a couple of years before I finish that. But the reason I started a PhD is because I want to be a research engineer, so working in research and development. And quite often you'll need a PhD for that. So I have started that process and I'm really excited about it. But I had no idea that that's what you could do with a PhD. I only figured that out a couple of years ago, actually. And before that, I was just planning on working in consulting as an engineer, which is also a really awesome job.
Very cool.
So when I started my degree in chemistry, I was really looking to have a job in pharmaceuticals or working to create novel pharmaceuticals and something more in the healthcare realm. I ended up in engineering research, oddly enough. I actually really like it. One of the biggest aspects of my job is I loved research. So even though it's not pharmaceutical research, I'm still able to do a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving that still helps the greater good of our world. If it's not in pharmaceuticals, it's in environmental remediation. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and then again, I'm WISE's outreach coordinator. So right now, my job is less in the direct science in terms of I'm not actually conducting research, but I'm spreading my enthusiasm for research and for all different types of science and sharing that with everyone. So what are your current career aspirations? So I know we've also kind of talked about this a little bit, but 5, 10, 20 years down the line, what do you think you might want to be doing?
So 5 years down the line, I will be done my PhD, hopefully. And I'll probably be working either as a postdoc, but more likely working for a research company in R&D, either in Canada or the States or maybe Europe. We'll just have to see what field I go into. And eventually I'd like to be in a leadership role, either manager or some sort of leadership role within an industrial company.
Very cool.
So I guess my 5-term goal right now is really where I'm at. I'm working in research and I really love it. And a big part of that is developing a lab space. One of my long-term goals, I've always wanted to be a lab consultant. So basically helping individuals build a lab or go in and help them restructure and organize their lab and build systems. So I kind of fell into that role a little earlier than planned. Another long-term goal I've always had of mine was to be working a little bit more in the synthetic organic chemistry world and getting back to working a lot with like essential oils and extractions and creating my own tonics. So I've always seen myself wanting to like a little basement garage lab when I have my own home one day.
Nice, that's really cool. As for me, I'm not quite sure. I love outreach work. I love the STEM outreach work. I'm really passionate about equity, diversity, and inclusion in the STEM world, and I think that's really, really important. But I also love research and would maybe one day like to get back to that too. So who knows? Great. Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what you did growing up. So what are some things that you did during junior high and high school to help you get where you are today? Leah, let's start with you.
I just always really liked numbers. So my parents used to buy me a lot of books like numbers for kids or like math experiments, science experiments for kids. And I just did a lot of those in my spare time. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. So I didn't really have my siblings to hang out with growing up. So they're much older than me. So I focused a lot on just like books. And yeah, just doing it at home. I was that kid who had the at-home experiment chemistry kit. So I did a lot of that, and I love puzzles. I still do puzzles up to this day. So I think that's where a lot of my background led me to getting into science. And I just always really enjoyed those courses in high school and junior high. And I remember in grade 9, my friend and I had a competition to see who can get 100 on their math provincial exam. So that's kind of the child I was.
That's awesome. Yeah. How about you?
For me, I wouldn't say I did anything really specific. I was always really good at math and science. So I was really good at that when I was in high school and junior high. And then when I went to university, I actually started in arts just for a year. And in that program, I really found that I loved my calculus courses, which was very strange for an art student. So that sort of led me to change into a STEM career because I loved my calculus class so much and I just wanted to do more. So I changed into engineering.
Cool. And now I know you grew up in a rural town.
Yeah.
Did that, do you think that limited you? Do you have any tips maybe for students who might be growing up in a rural town?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't have a lot of role models in STEM, but I didn't really see myself in a STEM career when I was younger. I honestly didn't really think about it, so I wasn't really looking for those role models, but certainly they are there. You just have to reach out to them, and there's different programs like the Wisest Summer Research Program, which is amazing, and I wish I had looked into that when I was younger. So there's a lot of opportunities there. You just sort of have to go out of your way to find them or ask your teachers or older students who are already in university.
Cool. As for me, when I was in grade 2, I won a science fair with my project on how to save the manatees. And that definitely set me out down the path that I'm on today. I couldn't tell you how to save the manatees today, but I don't remember what I put. I do have a friend who did her PhD in that research, but winning the grand prize for that science fair was actually going to a science camp. And so I went to that science camp as long as I could. And then when I couldn't go there anymore, I became a camp counselor. And so that was kind of the way that what really kind of put me down that path. But actually in high school, I also loved writing a ton. And so my career goal as I was starting to enter into university was actually to become an environmental journalist. I wanted to travel around the world and write about climate change and those types of things. And that changed pretty quickly. But we'll get into that in the next question, which is what things did you do during university to help you get where you are today? So Heidi, let's start with you this time.
I guess during university, I really liked my courses. I really loved studying, which sounds, it's true. I just love my courses, and I didn't really do a lot of extracurriculars. Looking back, I would definitely change that now and get more involved in the clubs, but I was really focused on my classes, and then I did a co-op program, so I got to do some work in between my courses, which was awesome because I got to see what it would be like to be an engineer. But mostly during university, I really focused on academics, but there are so many different clubs that you can join, especially in engineering. They have all these really cool clubs that I wish I had looked into when I was in undergrad as well.
Can you explain a little bit more about what the co-op program is and how that can help students?
Yeah, so it's, I know they have it in other programs as well, but for engineering, it's 20 months of work experience. So it adds 1 year onto your degree. but you get to work for 3 different companies for 8 or 4-month terms. So it's really good experience. And it's actually how I found my job after I graduated undergrad, which was amazing. And it made it really easy for me to find work afterwards. And I got to work in 3 different industries. So figuring out which type of engineer I wanted to be and what environment I wanted to work in. So it was really beneficial, and you get paid for it as well, which is really helpful too during school.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, just to add on to that, the company I work for, they take on a lot of co-op students from the U of A, and that's one of the biggest things that they love is seeing the diversity in the actual world of engineering that they didn't know existed when they're kind of just set in their own pocket of the specialization that they're going to, whether it's civil or mechanical or chemical. And so if you ever get an opportunity to do the co-op course, it's a really good benefit to your degree. The chemistry department, they don't actually have co-ops. They have something called an industrial internship program, and it's really small, and only like 5 people are ever able to get into it in a year. So it's not something that's really commonly advertised. For myself here, I was actually part of the Chemistry Students Association. So I did a lot of outreach there and tried to get people more engaged into the world of chemistry and understanding chemistry a little bit better. I also co-chaired the Undergraduate Chemistry Conference that was held at the U of A. I just kind of did a lot around school, and I did undergraduate research with Dr. Todd Lowry, working on pharmaceuticals for tuberculosis, which was really fun to do, and carried that on a little bit after I finished my degree too, because I just wasn't really sure where I was heading yet.
Yeah. So for me, my first semester in university, I was super lost. I really struggled in all my classes. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I changed my major 3 times in that first semester. But then by the time I started my second semester, I took this one course that was called Forest and Shade Tree Pathology, which was actually all about tree diseases and different types of tree diseases, and it completely changed my worldview. And in that same semester, I also applied for this fellowship program, and I spent a lot of time talking to the professor for it. And she's this amazing botanist, and she's also a really strong Indigenous woman, and was super inspiring in so many ways. And so she really encouraged me to kind of go into that, and she also gave me undergraduate research experience, which is huge. So my very first summer after university, I started off doing undergraduate research, and that I think made a huge difference for me. It really opened my eyes to seeing the different types of things that I can do. And so undergraduate research enabled me to get a job with the Forest Service. It enabled me to be able to do all of those sorts of things as well. And I didn't go to the University of Alberta, but I know the University of Alberta does have this program called URI, which is the Undergraduate Research Initiative. And that is a really great place for you. It's a great resource for anybody who is looking to do undergraduate research, because that's definitely the best thing that I did as an undergrad. And actually the way that I found my research is I just went up to the professors during their office hours that I was really interested in classes that I was really interested in, and I made myself known to them. And I went up and said, hey, I'm super into this, or is there any jobs? Are there any opportunities? And I went to university in the US, and so I was able to travel all around parts of the US to help to do research. It was really cool.
Yeah, I did the same thing, just poking your instructors, because they're a really good resource. And then I found one whose research aligned with something that I liked. So it worked out.
And actually, that's probably my number one piece of advice to any university student, especially somebody who's been a TA, a teaching assistant for multiple courses as well in the past, is make yourself known to your instructors. It makes them more likely to help you. It makes them more likely to give you opportunities, and it usually makes your grades better too, which can't hurt, right? So take advantage of those office hours. If I can tell you how many times I just sat in my office waiting for people to come to my office hours and nobody showed up. I don't even have enough fingers and toes for that. Awesome. So next question, what sort of opportunities were or have been made available to you when you were trying to pick or decide upon a path for your career? Can you think of any? Leah, let's start with you this time.
So it's a little, I guess, my chemistry is interesting in Alberta. A lot of the chemistry centers in Canada are centered more so in Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. So a lot of the paths for me were really focused more so in the chemical analysis, chemical technician side of it. So I had to dig a little deeper to really find the jobs that I was looking for. I think a lot of the times people discredited you that you didn't have enough enough education in terms of master's or PhD to do the research, but then they thought that you were overeducated to do the simple technician work. So I got held in limbo for a bit. But it was actually just through a lot of talking and letting people, giving them more information actually about your background and about your degree and actually how it applied to the job you were looking for. It helped a lot. I don't know if I really answered your question. But
No, yeah, that's okay. Would you say you had any mentors that helped you with that at all?
Oh, yeah, actually, so there is a chemistry advisory office here. Her name was Julie McDermott, and she was actually a really great resource for me, and I bounced so many questions off of her. And actually, the Career Center here at the U of A helped me a lot to help me just figure out how to even write a resume, how to showcase my skills, how best to present myself as a brand, because that was something that was completely foreign to me as well. So if you are willing to look for it, the resources are there to help you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So for engineering, once I was in the program, there are so many resources there, especially through the co-op program. So they really allow you to try your hand at engineering in different industries, and you get to work with different people. So that's a lot of the time how you meet your mentors. And then also the professors, especially at the U of A, are amazing. So a ton of my professors have become my mentors, one in particular. So it's really great to make those connections, and you can even make the connections with the grad students who are your TAs. So there's a lot of different resources for you, and even just talking to the older students to figure out what type of engineering you want to go into or what type of jobs you want to do. But really the co-op program is one of the main resources for engineering, especially when you're looking at getting your career afterwards.
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, excuse me, again, I didn't go to university in Canada, but my program for undergrad was really specialized. And so there were a lot of kind of specific forestry type opportunities that a lot of the classes ended up training us for. I know I specifically took a couple field courses that were like, if you want to get this job at the Forest Service, we're going to teach you how to do it, because that's kind of where a lot of different types of jobs were. So I took a bunch of classes like that. And then a lot of, in terms of kind of finding a direction, a lot of that was just, again, talking to grad students and other fellow undergrads and professors and those types of things to try to figure out what I'm interested in and what kind of path I wanted to take. Yeah. All right, we're just motoring on through here. Lots of great questions to talk about. So let's talk a little bit about challenges then. So what challenges did you face when you picked your career, if any? If not, that's okay too.
Some of the challenges, I guess, were me, myself, even thinking that I could be an engineer, that I could do it. And it took a while. Even when I was an undergrad, I was doing very well, but even that confidence didn't come naturally to me for engineering, because I didn't know any engineers, especially female engineers, when I was growing up. But so as far as challenges go, I've had some difficult managers, but I think that's true of any career. It's not engineering specific, but that's definitely something that can be overcome, just chatting with other people that you work with. But as far as engineering goes, it's been actually, I've had been really lucky with my experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess some of the challenges I faced was I really didn't have anyone around me that was going into chemistry or sciences at all. Most of my friends are actually nurses, so a lot of people just expected me to go that route as well, and I was like, absolutely not. So yeah, it was just I guess a lot of the challenges were just what people's perceptions of me and not expecting me to be able to do it, and then letting that like feed into me, and then me creating the self-doubt, and then constantly having to bring that out and be like, no, Leah, you can do this. You went into chemistry for a reason, and you are more than capable of completing chemistry. So I think those are some of the biggest challenges. And honestly, the course load, I'm not going to lie about that. Almost every chemistry course I had to take had a lab component with it. So like taking 5 classes and 4 labs in a semester is like very challenging, and you start to question your sanity at points. But then you have a support system, and being part of the student group really helped that, because you found people that were like-minded that were also going through the same challenges.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. My cohort was really small. I think there were only 15 or 16 students in my major in my whole university, because it was so specialized. And that it sometimes made it a bit challenging, but I also had labs. I was also taking 3 to 5 labs this semester. 5 is way too many for me personally. 3 to 4 was kind of the sweet spot. But again, you spend a lot of time actually in classes, and then you have to spend all of the extra time doing all the work outside of that too. Definitely quite a bit of challenges there. I also, especially when I first started in my major, again, it was really small, but I was one of two women. In all of the forestry classes I took, there was the most that they ever had were 3 women in them. And when that happened, that was like a huge deal. I actually, my TA for one of those classes was like so excited that he pointed it out every single time when we were in the lab, in our silviculture lab. He was like, and there's 3 women in this course this year, which had never happened in apparently his 30 years of helping to teach that course. So some of that is also just not having a good role model that kind of seemed like me. And luckily, not long after I started, a female professor started also, and she actually ended up becoming my master's advisor. And she was a really great role model as well. And so I think that that kind of helped me a lot too. So yeah. All right. In your opinion, how does one create a successful career in STEM? That's a really tough question. If you want, I can start. Yeah. I've got some things to talk about with that. I think the most important thing to remember with STEM is that there's not one picture of what a scientist or an engineer looks like. And oftentimes that can change and shift, right? There are a lot more opportunities now in science communication, for example. So if you really love science, but you don't necessarily want to work in a lab all day, then there are still plenty of opportunities for you there. And you kind of have to, I have a friend, she got her PhD, she was doing breast cancer research, but she decided she didn't want to stay in a lab all day. And so she ended up also doing some policy stuff, and now she's actually working for the US federal government, helping to form the actual government policy around all of these types of research and things like that, right? So just because you want to go into STEM doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be like that stereotype wearing goggles and holding a beaker, right? If you want to do that, that's awesome. But no offense to you. And I've been there plenty of times, and I also think that's cool, but and for some people that's really great, and for some people it's not. So I think a lot of that is kind of determining what types of things you are really interested in and get you excited. So for me, when I was in graduate school, I found that I really loved to do a lot of outreach type things. So I spent a lot of my time, for whatever reason, we had a lot of entomology related outreach. And so because my grad degree was half entomology, which is insects, and half mycology, which is fungi. And so for whatever reason, we had tons of requests through my university's outreach office to talk about insects. And so I spent tons of time working with local schools and planning field trips and all different kinds of things. And I found that I was super excited about that. And so I kind of figured out different ways after I graduated to work in those types of things. So yeah. You guys have anything else to add about that?
I don't think success isn't just one picture. Like, success isn't something you can generalize. Success is something that is different for each individual. So maybe one person finds success in doing their PhD, or another person finds success just happy that they finished their bachelor's, or another person, like she said, can find success in holding a beaker and wearing those glasses, whereas someone else might prefer to, how do I create the method on how we hold the beaker? So it's so tailored to dependent on who you are and what your passions are. So as long as you follow your intuition and follow your true passion, then you'll find success. Yeah,
and I didn't know that passion until most of the way through my undergraduate career. So if you don't know what that is yet, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's really about exploring different opportunities. And that's kind of how you learn, right? I did a couple, I had this one internship that I figured pretty early in. I was like, this isn't really something that I want to do long-term, but that's okay, because it was still a great learning opportunity, looked great on my resume, and I learned from it and decided that I wanted to go in a different direction. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think building your network, and that's sort of how you figure out all these different opportunities and the different things that you could do. So for me, when I was doing my master's, I was working with people who were doing research as engineers, and I thought, I absolutely want to do that, but I don't want to be a professor. So if I hadn't met them, I may not be doing my PhD right now, and I'd be in a totally different career path. But like you said, there's no one successful career. So a lot of engineering is maybe bridges and cars. That's what people think of, but that's not necessarily true. If you want to work for Tesla, that's awesome. But you can also, make sure every country has access to clean drinking water. So there's so many different things that you can do with all science or engineering degrees. It's not cookie cutter. This is what you're going to do. You're going to build a bridge. I would hate doing that. So there's just so many things that you can do with these degrees, and you can really turn it into whatever career that you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really big thing. And especially if you come here to the University of Alberta, again, there's so many different resources available to you. We're sitting in the Career Center right now, and that is something that is huge. They have so many different types of career counselors and other people available to you to help you kind of try to tease out what kind of skills you might need, what you might be interested in, and those types of things as well. So yeah, definitely. All right, so now we're going to move on to some questions that people submitted for us online from teachers and students. So here's one that came from a student, and it says, how difficult is it for women to enter STEM-related fields? It's a tough question.
There's definitely still some stigmas associated in the field of just being a woman. Sometimes your voice doesn't get heard the same way. You can say something and your male colleague can say something and you're completely ignored and they take what they say for face value, which really sucks. But I think you learn to, I think it allows you to grow a bigger confidence in yourself than you ever realized that you had, because you know that you have to almost just step a little bit above them. It's unfortunate that it still has to be that way, but yeah, you become a stronger person because of it, in my opinion. Because when I first started at the company I work for, there was only 2 other women that were actually in engineering, and then we had a receptionist. So there's 3 women that were in the lab space at a time, and I was like, this is so foreign for me. But after being at this company now for 2.5 years, there's about 7 women on the workforce. So it's drastically changed. And I know that some things that, yeah, they didn't want to listen to me for, they realized that, like, wow, you actually have really good value. And recognizing as well that women's perspective is a little bit different than a man's perspective, and understanding that it's very much needed in the workforce to allow for diversity and the fluid movement of thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I made it a little harder on myself initially just because I wasn't sure if I belonged in engineering. But certainly it can be challenging at times, but don't let that stop you. And for me, actually, in my undergrad classes, I was in environmental engineering, so it was almost 50-50 male and female. So I was really lucky, and I didn't have any problems with my peers questioning my abilities or anything like that. And then once you get into the workforce, certainly there's going to be some difficult people, but that shouldn't stop you, certainly. And, you know, you can move past that, and there's always people who are going to mentor you, male or female. It's you can always find the right people that are going to help you. So don't let, you know, being a woman or anything like that stop you from going into a STEM career. It certainly makes you a stronger person, like Leah said. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a somewhat of a similar experience. So again, my undergrad was kind of half biology, half forestry. My biology classes were about 50-50 men and women, and my forestry classes were like 90% men. But really, what you tend to see in the research is that the higher you go in the careers, the fewer representation you have for any type of diversity. So the question specifically was about women, but you start to see that with people of color, with Indigenous people, with anybody outside of the gender binary, you know, LGBTQ plus people, anything like that. Slowly we're starting to see more of that and more representation for everybody. And I honestly believe that we're all stronger once we have a diverse voice. But it's one of the things that Wisest really does is try to reduce those barriers for anybody to enter the STEM fields. We believe that everybody has a place in STEM, and so a lot of the opportunities that we have really try to make sure that those barriers are reduced enough that if anybody wants to go into STEM, they can, and they feel like they have that place. So some of that's through mentoring sessions. Obviously, we have lots of opportunities for junior high and high school students. Once you get to undergrad, we have a UA WISE group on campus that is an undergrad kind of networking thing. And then for graduate students and young professionals, we have Wiser. And so there are so many different types of opportunities through Wisest that you can kind of, meet and mentor and network. We also have been offering through a group called WinSet. We've also been offering a bunch of different professional development sessions for people in their careers to learn a little bit more about how they can, again, reduce those barriers again and become stronger individuals in their careers and those types of things. So there's so many opportunities. It can be difficult at times. There are a lot of different things that are difficult for people, but organizations like Wisest and lots of other organizations out there today really want to see everybody have a place in STEM.
Just one thing to add to that, we absolutely need diversity in STEM. One example, when they were first doing crash test dummies for cars, nobody thought to make a dummy for a pregnant woman because there were no women there. So just little things like that you wouldn't think of that hopefully now wouldn't happen, but everybody needs a seat at the table. We need a very diverse group to make sure that we are in engineering, like solving problems for everybody, not just one type of person.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something that still hasn't been solved in my industry is the need for female lab coats.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Because every lab coats are basically made like a rectangle, so you are never able to do your bottom buttons up. Same with coveralls for job sites. They're like super baggy on the top just so you can access like your hip movement. So if anyone out there knows fashion and loves science, maybe you want to create a fashion line directed towards women in STEM.
That would be great. Oh my gosh.
Right?
It's been a while since I've worked in a lab, but yeah, the lab coats were either way too big because I'm only 5 feet tall or just didn't fit properly. Yeah, totally. Awesome. And so I think we've kind of touched on some of these other questions. This one is, what is the pay disparity like between men and women in STEM careers? It depends on the specific career and it depends on the specific field. And I can speak a little bit to that because I do have experience doing this type of research for Wisest. I know it really does depend. There are some fields where it's a lot closer to parity in making it equal. But again, there are others where there is a huge difference. Those types of statistics and data aren't necessarily super readily available, but Statistics Canada says that they're pretty much average for the pay disparity between men and women in STEM careers is about what it is throughout the rest of Canada. So hopefully that gap closes sooner rather than later. Do either of you have anything to add to that?
I can't really speak to that. I know as a grad student, I'm paid the same as my male colleagues, if not more. It's like sort of based on merit, which is really nice. But I can't speak to necessarily the workforce. I've only worked in the workforce for like a year or so. Yeah.
Unfortunately, at my occupation right now, I'm the only chemist and I'm the only female. So there's no one to actually compare me to. And at my previous job, when I worked in an analysis lab, it was about 50-50 split and between men and women in the lab, and we all got paid more or less even. So.
Is the amount of females pursuing a career in the STEM field increasing? Yes, it is, which is really good.
Sure. Yes.
And so now it depends on the major, and certain majors and fields tend to have way more, tend to have different amounts. So biology, for example, has been 50-50 in undergrads for quite a long time. The higher up you go, and I think they're pretty close to 50-50 for grad students. But once you get kind of to those professional associate professor and up, there's still disparity there. But it's completely different for, say, engineering or computer science, or I'm not quite sure about chemistry or any of those types of fields. But I know a lot of the fields that tend to be more unpopular for women for whatever reason are things like physics, computer science, and engineering are kind of the big three. Can you add anything onto that?
Yeah, so in engineering, we're doing a lot of work to recruit more young women and just show them like all the things you can do with an engineering career, because I know I had no idea when I was in high school. I literally thought it was like cars and bridges, and I didn't care about any of that. So we're doing a lot of work trying to recruit more young women, but also it depends on the field of engineering you go into. So environmental, for example, is about 50-50. Same with biomedical. So it really depends on the different route you take in engineering, but they're definitely increasing that number. So it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same for chemistry as well. It's pretty specialized. It's much more of a smaller knit of background. So there is still a fair amount of disparity. But thinking of my time here at the U of A, and a lot of my classes were about 70%, 65% were male, and about the rest were female. I actually didn't have any female professors at all. One of my most memorable lab coordinators actually was female, and she had been here for an extremely long time, and she left a standing mark on me, I guess you could say. But as you go up, it just becomes more of a heavily male-dominated field, and I was fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that for some people that can be more challenging. And that's a big part of the reason why networking and meeting other people and like-minded folks can really be helpful. And I know if, say, if you're in a university that you don't necessarily feel like you have a lot of people that you know or you can connect with, there's also a ton of people and opportunities to network on social media as well, using science communication and talking about your career. There's tons of really awesome hashtags that, you know, for whatever tiny little subsect of STEM that you feel like you might fit into or that you identify with, you can find people on the internet that can help you with that too, right?
As a side note, I recently, for my job, was helping to hire 2 new chem techs for a position, and we went through about 400 resumes, and they were actually a really good split between male and female. So there is a huge increase in the number of women that are entering the STEM field and are actually fresh graduates that are looking for work. So it was really nice to see all those names on there.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a great thing. So again, we kind of touched on this a bit already. What careers in the STEM field are most popular for females?
I feel like definitely biology.
Yeah, biology is a big one. Studies have shown, at least kind of from my experience, that people who identify as female tend to have more, they tend to want to pursue careers where they feel like they make a difference, where they kind of feel like they care more. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I think there's a lot of reasonings. But so biology is a really big one. In my university, the wildlife biology and conservation biology were actually mostly women. And then it was all the other biology majors like forest health and fisheries science and all those other ones that had way less women in them. And so again, kind of conservation biology, they care about conservation. Wildlife science, they wanted to become zookeepers or those types of things. And then some of the other ones that are really popular. You said environmental engineering.
Environmental and biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering.
Are most popular for women.
The medical field in general, any aspect of the medical field is actually at gender parity now, except the only exceptions would be medical physics, which is actually a really cool program at the U of A that I didn't know about until not that long ago. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Even biomedical. So I guess the only exception is medical physics. So any type of medical field is at parity. And that tends to be really popular as well. And things that are less popular, like we mentioned already, computer science, way less popular, certain types of engineering and physics, definitely. And math, also a really big one too. Yeah. Awesome. Here's an interesting one. If you could start your undergrad career over again, would you choose the same career path? That's a really tough question.
I think I would. Honestly, I really like working in chemistry. I probably would have put a lot more emphasis onto, I did undergraduate research, but I probably would have put more emphasis onto it or stuck with it harder or maybe started off a little bit earlier or maybe tried to learn that a little bit earlier. I think that may be the only difference that I would have done. So I did a specialization degree at the U of A here, so I had no minor and I was only 2 classes away from doing an honors degree. And I probably would have gone back and done those 2 classes again because why not? And now that I work a lot in environmental chemistry, and those are the 2 classes that I didn't. Just I kind of laugh at it.
Do you have anything to say, or if you don't think you would change your field at all? Like, what's something that you maybe you would do differently as an undergrad?
I think I would have gone right into engineering rather than spend my 1 year in arts. But it was a good year. But I'd probably just skip that and go right into engineering. But in engineering, I would have joined more clubs. They have some amazing clubs. One of my friends is in Bolivia right now. They're building bridges there. So there's just so many different things that you can do in these different clubs. And so I would take advantage of that if I went back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely I've taken advantage of the clubs abroad. So that was one of the things I really wish I would have done was the study abroad programs and just taking a semester just to be at a different university in a different country. Yeah.
I also wish I had done that. I didn't do that and I wish I had, yeah. I also think I would choose the same fields that I did. I think I probably would have taken, my university was a very specialized, specifically environmental university. And so all of the classes that I took had some sort of environmental slant to them. And I think I probably would have diversified I would go to the same university, but I think I would have diversified the types of classes that I took a little bit. In graduate school, I think I would have taken a couple other classes just to get some different perspectives and different opportunities for career paths as well. Just to make sure that I had lots of options open to me. Because there were a couple of, like if I had taken a couple more classes, I would probably have, I think I'm missing like 2 or 3 classes that would probably open up a whole swath of different kind of job opportunities that could potentially be interesting, which again, I could always go back and take at any time. But and also getting involved in extracurriculars, that was a really big thing. I did some of them, but the extracurriculars that I did when I was an undergrad were like volunteering for Earth Week, or I don't know what else did I do. I was the editor of the school newspaper for a couple of years. I don't really do any of that sort of stuff now, but I guess I sort of do. I sort of do communications with WISES. But yeah.
Yeah, your student groups, like your faculty groups, are really good. I think being part of the Chemistry Student Association was such a good opportunity for me, because not only was I able to, I kind of give a good perspective to a lot of the younger students that came by and asked questions when I was in my 4th year, but I was also able to really overlap a lot with the grad students and kind of get an idea about what it's like to when you finish your degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What do you like most about your job?
I like that my job is not the same thing every day. So my first job out of university was working at an analysis lab for a major oil company, and a lot of it was just like day in and out testing. And I learned 40 different types of instruments really well, and standard testing methods really well that I've used in my current job, but it was the same thing every day, or like just pushing buttons and just testing and analyzing. Whereas at least now, because I'm back in research, I have to think a lot on my toes. A lot of my day is troubleshooting and helping people solving problems and putting out fires and all of that. So I'm actually really like the diversity of it all.
Very cool.
Yeah, same for me. The one thing I really like about research is that I am working on a real world problem. So we have a big environmental problem, and we're solving that. And it's really unique because it's never been done before. They don't have a solution. So I really like being a part of that. And it's going to have a big impact, hopefully, when we solve it. So I really like being a part of that. Yeah.
Very cool. For me, I really like seeing students get excited about STEM and get excited about those types of things, because I still get really excited about it. I think I shared something on my social media today. There was an astronaut like taking honey in outer space and like the different ways that honey moved in outer space. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. and I got really excited about it. And so I think seeing other students and other people get just as excited about it as I do, and kind of instilling that excitement. Because again, that's kind of how I got into it, right? As I went to this summer science camp and I realized that this whole world existed and that other people got really excited about these types of things, and that I wasn't alone in that, which was a huge thing. That actually was a huge thing for me at university, because in high school, I don't think I knew anybody who was interested in the types of things that I was interested in. I felt like I didn't know anybody. I felt super lonely. I was bullied. It was awful. And then as soon as I got to university, like this whole world opened up, and I was like, oh my God, there's people like me. There's so many people like me out there. This is crazy. So it was a big thing for me. What kind of careers can be pursued after a Bachelor of Science degree?
Lots.
Yeah.
I don't know, like a lot. I think you start when you're in school and you're doing your degree, you're so like you have blinders on, and you think that this is the only options for you, is like right in the same trajectory as what you're going on in like your chemistry world. I would never have thought that I would be working for an engineering research company doing chemistry, like ever. Mm-hmm. So everything. I don't know how else to answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, Bachelor of Science, I'm not familiar with that. Bachelor of Science in Engineering, certainly you can do pretty much whatever you wanted to do with it. You can work in consulting, you can work for an industry, you can also go on to work for the government, work in like public health or different things like that, work in advising or policy. So there's so many different things that you can do other than just being, just working as an engineer for a company. It's a lot more than just that.
Yeah, you can do all that same stuff that she said with just a regular science degree as well.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who actually, we did our undergrad in chemistry together, and now he's an environmental lawyer, and he never thought that he was become a lawyer. So
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah, totally. So I can again speak for I have some friends who are working as foresters. I have some friends who, in more of kind of the biology realm, I have friends who moved to Africa and started working with big game animals. I have friends who became zookeepers. I have friends who, it's actually really cool. I have friends all around the world now. They've like moved, and I would say probably about half of them have gone to grad school. I know, especially for a lot of biology fields, it seems like getting full-time permanent jobs, grad school is usually a much bigger deal than it seems like some other types of fields. And I think part of that is just that there's just so many more people that seem to go into biology. And a lot of that depends on kind of the specific subsect. I know a lot of friends who went into wildlife biology. There's so many people in wildlife biology that they have a really hard time finding permanent jobs. And so and then a lot of them, are like, well, maybe I want to be a lawyer, or I want to, go into policy or those types of things. A lot of my friends that had similar majors and degrees that I did are working as forest health specialists now. And so they're either working for the Forest Service or different states or provinces, surveying forests and looking at forest management. I have some friends who work in integrated pest management for like the cannabis industry. So they go through the greenhouses and look for different insect or fungal pests that are doing those types of things too. And I don't know, there are so many different options, and it totally depends on your degree, which direction you might want to go in.
So I even have friends that also work in the cannabis industry, and they're on the other half of it doing a lot of the quality control and analysis testing and stuff like that, and doing a lot of the research on where the other world of cannabis can take you. So everything.
It's interesting because I would say a lot of people, in my experience, I would say like half people work for the government in some way. In my some people are park rangers. Some people, work seasonally as technicians, and then become ski bums in the winter. There are lots of people who do that. And then if you end up going back for a master's or a PhD in biology, at least your opportunities change significantly. And again, it depends on the type of biology that you're interested in. And I'm just speaking to my personal experience here. If people in environmental biology, I know a lot of people who took more of the kind of human or medical biology route, and there's a lot of technician jobs and those types of permanent jobs that you can get kind of right off the bat. So. All right, well, we are almost out of time, if you can believe it. So I guess we'll just take a couple minutes, and then if there's anything else that we haven't talked about today that you think you might want to add, or something that you would want to say to the students who might be watching this, now's the time. You have a voice, speak.
You wanna go ahead?
I was just like, you go ahead.
I just go out and just try it, I guess, is really the one thing. Before I was on my way here, I live with my boyfriend, and he has 2 teenage daughters. And one of them was like, oh, I really like your outfit. Where are you going? And I told her I was going to this WISES thing. And she remembered when she was in grade 6, she did the SET conference, and she got all excited, and she goes, oh my God, that sounds so familiar, and went on about it for me. So just try it. And she was really unsure about doing that when she was 12 years old. And now she talks about science all the time, and she gets excited, and she comes home and she's in grade 8 now and talks about what she's learned about in school. And I don't know if she didn't just try it on a whim, if she would have liked that. So I think the same thing says for you. If you're really interested in it and you just want to learn more, go get a book, go talk to a counselor, go just walk over to the U of A, send an email. There's so many avenues that you can do. And especially for me, I'm actually born and raised in Edmonton. And I feel that being from the big city, I took it for granted. So if any of you are from Edmonton, don't take it for granted, because you have so much in your backyard that you don't even aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say don't limit yourself. If you don't find a role model in that career, you certainly can, especially once you get to university. There's so many people out there. So if you're interested in something, just sort of go for it, or look into it more and see all the possibilities for you. Like I said, when I was in high school, I had no idea what engineers did. And then it turns out I really love it. So just, you never know what you're going to do. So definitely don't limit yourself, and just look into all the possibilities.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If you think you're interested in something, try to find some way that you can, whether it's inside of school or outside of school, that you can engage with that a little bit more. Just to plug Wisest a little bit more, we do have tons of different programs and opportunities for you. If you're interested in coding, we're working with some coding clubs to start one in your school. We have our SET conference for high school girls, so that's grades 10 through 12. We have our SRP program, which is our summer research program. So if you're in grade 11, you can apply for that, and that's a 6-week paid internship here at the University of Alberta campus to do research for the summer, which is super cool. And if you follow us on social media, we have tons of other random opportunities that come up all the time that you can kind of meet and network and share with other people as well. So yeah, cool. So that looks just about like all the time we have for today. On behalf of Wisest, I would like to thank our 2 awesome panelists who came to join us today, took time out of their busy schedules to come help us out. Our next event for female high school students is our annual SET conference that is happening on November 23rd this year, so save the date. If you have registered for the event today online, we're going to be emailing you a post-event survey to receive a discount, a $20 discount to our SET conference, which is pretty cool, and you can help us make this event even better next year. If you haven't registered and would like to fill out a survey, just visit the link in the description box below to do so. So thanks for listening, and we hope to interact with you again soon.